We are back in the Classic Motorsports workshop today. We are going to put a floor pan in our Bug-Eye Sprite project. I have once again begged, borrowed, stolen my expert friend, longtime friend, Tom Prescott. Have you ever put a floor pan in a car before?
I try not to. I have employees that do that for me.
Okay, so we figured this was a common repair. Most cars need it. This car is no different really than a Mustang or a Camaro or a Triumph TR6, although a Triumph TR6 does have a full frame on it. But floor pan replacement, would you agree it's pretty much the same for every vehicle? There are some nuances, some are a little trickier, but not much. It's pretty basic.
Yeah, just figure out where the floor is, which way it's going to come out, how to drill it out, what you need to cut out, all those variables. And
okay, words from an expert, figure out where the floor is. We really, I'm glad I have you here for that.
And make sure it's the right floor pan.
Yeah, before you get it all out.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
Before we get into the techniques, I want to admit we've already partially done this one, so this doesn't turn into a 2-day video, but we'll kind of mix and match. So if there's a little inconsistency there, bear with us. We're going to basically try to show you in one video the whole technique. So how much time does it take to replace a floor pan?
It depends on the vehicle.
Good answer.
Yeah. This vehicle here, you could probably do this floor pan in probably 4 to 5 hours.
So an amateur could probably get it out in one day, 6-8 hour day.
Correct.
And back in 4 to 6 hours.
Yes.
So, Moss has new floor pans for almost every British car. They're very reasonably priced and most of them fit nearly perfectly. The aftermarket has come a long way over the years. In the early days of restoring these British cars, we used to get pans and stuff that didn't fit very well, but today things are a lot better.
Correct.
All right, our first step is to kind of analyze what we're doing. In this case, we don't have any other rust, but if you had rust in your rocker panels, you would want to brace the car, and you can literally just weld a piece of angle iron across the door jamb. Make sure your door fits. Once you're convinced that you have a good gap all the way around your door, you can weld a piece in and then cut it out later.
Yeah, you want to get the pan out of the way and then take a look at all the areas that meet up to it and what's going to be easy to weld with the pan out of it. You want to get those areas taken care of right away, and other areas you may have to do after it's done to where it mounts down to the floor.
All right, and I think a competent amateur restorer can do this job, but, but I wouldn't do this as my first ever restoration project. I might start with patching a quarter panel first.
That would be a lot easier, yes.
Another thing to talk about is whether you replace the whole panel or part of the panel. In the old days, the conventional wisdom is you just instantly replace the whole piece. In modern restoration, you generally replace as little as you have to. So if we only had rust in this one little area, we would probably not put a whole pan in. But I would use the aftermarket pan from Moss. The days of just pop riveting a piece of aluminum in there, don't do that.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. There. You know, if you're going to do something, do it right. But you don't have to replace an entire pan unless it warrants it. So if you've just got one bad area, you know, these pans have these grooves in here. You're going to want to duplicate that. But you can buy the pan and cut it out. We did a video on this area, and that repair would be essentially the same.
Correct.
We can give you the link for that video. But that's the way you'd replace a small part of a floor pan. So with that, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is start drilling out the old pan. We've decided we don't need to brace the car. We're going to put a safety gear on and hit it.
Sounds like a plan.
Let me rephrase that. We'll put your safety gear on and you hit it.
Oh, wait a minute here. In the process, when you start drilling the spot welds out, I'll go over and find every one of the welds first and center punch them. That way I know that the drill's going to start in the correct area and drilled so it won't be wandering off on me, hopefully. But we will locate all the spot welds here, center punch them, then we're going to go ahead and drill them out. You want to make sure that you run the drill nice and slow. You have to remember that wherever that weld is, it's actually hardened the metal. It's like it's tempered the metal because of the heat. And so when you go ahead and start drilling, you start drilling real fast, it'll take the edge right off the bit. So if you go nice and slow with it, and that won't overheat the bit and it'll last much longer. Standard metal drill bit, usually it'll go through that pretty fast. A good carbide bit will last a lot longer. They do make special drill bits just for drilling spot welds out. The next step in the process is going to be splitting these apart from each other. So we're just going to use a regular chisel to do this. They do make a tool for splitting them, which you can buy. I think they cost about 25 bucks. It makes it a little bit easier. But we're going to do it just with a regular chisel, so bear with us and we'll separate the two pieces. At this point, those two pieces are separated. Now we got to get the other areas done, and it should come apart very easily. Just work one section at a time to make sure that they're all separated, drilled through correctly and separated, and makes it a lot easier to do. The time will go by faster. We got most of this floor pan cut out. This is the last piece that we got in here, and everything should be loosened. I just got to kind of wiggle it and get it out of here, but everything should go as planned. I'm going to spend some time and get all these areas in here where we've been running the chisel in. It's kind of bent the metal a little bit, nothing major. We're just going to take a hammer and dolly and go down through and straighten all that out prior to putting that back in, so everything should fit nice and tight and look right when we're done.
Now, any new floor pan will not have every single little piece. Like these are threaded for something. This is a little cover for a drain in the floor. So you need to take this stuff off of your floor pan. Sometimes a manufacturer will sell these little pieces separately, but generally they're never going to come on a pan because the pan would cost $1 million if they did all this work for you. So we need to carefully, we measure this, mark where this goes, and then cut these out. And we want to put all these onto the floor pan before we put it in. It's a lot easier to do this on a bench than it would be the other way. So we got to find, and these are, see, we've marked these.
Yep.
So
we'll mark those out too and go from there.
All right.
That's just a little, what is that, just a little drain on that?
Yeah, that's a drain that they put in the pan.
Oh yeah,
because I don't want to say this, but a side curtain bug eye might not have been totally waterproof, especially if you're drunk and left the top down.
Really?
Yeah.
Even if you're sober and left the top down.
Okay, fair enough. So,
okay. So, now, let's go ahead and get these pieces off and get this ready to go, get those marked out, drilled in place, and get them welded.
As always, it's a little harder than it looks. We ended up having to, turn it this way here a little bit. We ended up having to build in the old accelerator. We're assuming this is where the accelerator pedal bolts to the floor. The angle of this was a little different, so to get that in the right position, we had to do that. OEM panels are coveted for the reason is they're completely 100% accurate.
Correct.
The Moss ones are pretty darn good, but I've never found one that's perfect except for OEM. So we ended up putting the drain on. Oddly enough, two of the bolts for the seat brackets were there. Two are not. I don't know why, so we put the original seat pan on and tried that. And then there was a bolt here on the old panel. I believe it must be to hold down a brake line or some kind of a...
Good possibility.
But we put that back in the original place. And then we had to drill out all of these holes for the spot welds. So finally, we now have the panel ready to put in. We did make that look easy, didn't we?
It was easy, wasn't it?
You getting tired? I'm getting tired. All right.
Okay,
So should we put it in backwards or forwards or correctly?
correctly.
All right.
We're going to need our cameraman.
Ready? I'm going here. You need to drill the front drill. All right.
Okay, here we go.
We're dirty, we're exhausted, we're sweating, but we have a floor pan.
We got it done, didn't
Yep. You know, it was relatively straightforward. Took us 5-6 hours. You know, obviously I know what I'm doing and you really know what you're doing, but this can be done at home. This is a home garage that we're doing it in. We do know how to weld, you a lot better than I, but we got it done. The biggest tips would be measure twice, cut once. The kind of thing is, you know, before you start tacking it in, really make sure you've got it all the way around. And the other thing is, it's a heck of a lot easier to weld if you either really know what you're doing, and if you don't, keep everything super clean. Make sure you've got no grease. Make sure you got no paint, all bare metal, and this will go a lot easier.
Yep.
You got anything else?
You pretty much touched on everything. I like to take and use self-tapping screws, real short self-tapping screws, and screw the panel in, you know, every 10, 12 inches or so, or wherever there's a spot that's not coming up to the other piece of sheet metal. You want to have good fitment, and as you're welding, also tap it with a hammer to make sure that the weld is going to be tight. Yep.
You cannot weld air. You have to have your two pieces of metal butting up against each other.
The flanges have to fit up tight.
So you can weld one and then tap next to it to be able to weld the next one, tap next to it.
Yep.
And we also used a floor jack underneath to kind of bring it up to join the floor up to the side of the body. If you like this sort of stuff, go to classicmotorsports.com. We're doing this stuff all the time, and please like and subscribe our YouTube channel. We'll have the next installment coming out shortly.
Support brands that support classic motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. Visit crcindustries.com to learn more.